Hello, lovely humans. Today, we are going to be talking about 5 things that might be keeping you fat, and not a single one of them has to do with your calorie intake. Welcome or welcome back. Either way, I am so glad you're here. For those of you who are new here, I'm Heather. I am on a journey or adventure or something to get mentally and physically healthy. I'm taking you lovely people along for the ride, so make sure you subscribe. And I will be sharing every single thing that I learn along the way because we are all in this together. The number one reason that we tend to stay chunky is because we are in an abusive relationship with the scale.
I can't take it anymore.
Depending on your personal journey, you might weigh yourself once a month, once a week, or maybe even every day. There is no right amount to weigh yourself. For some people, weighing yourself every day is just a healthy way to stay accountable. For me personally, it's not. What determines this though is what your reaction is whenever you actually do weigh yourself. If you're getting on that scale and you're like, okay, this is just a way that I'm measuring my progress or my plateau depending on where I'm at in this, it's whatever number it's going to be. And either way, I'm going to stay doing all of the healthy things that I've been doing because I know they're right for me. Then I would say you're okay.
You mean it?
But for a lot of us, what we tend to do is regardless of how we did with making decisions during the week, sleeping, exercising, fruits, veggies, and being in a calorie deficit, regardless of whether that went well or not, a lot of us are getting on the scale because we feel like we just are supposed to weigh ourselves. And if that number that shows up isn't what we were hoping for, we are immediately down in the dumps, beating ourselves up, just absolutely beside ourselves. And you kind of get to the point where you're like, ugh, what's the freaking point? I talked a little bit about this in my walk and talk video, so I will make sure to link that on the end screens at the end of this video if you haven't got to check it out yet. And that video would help you to kind of change your mindset when you do get on the scale. But for this particular thing, I want you guys to take a second and just think about what your response is when you get on that scale. So I weigh myself on Sundays. If my actions for the entire week after are going to be affected by that number on the scale, I don't need to be on it. Because if you're just centering your entire health journey around the scale, you are going to end up sabotaging yourself because eventually everybody hits a plateau, even when they're making good decisions. And if you are not prepared for that mentally, the second that hits, or let's say you even just had a rough week in terms of making good decisions and you weigh yourself and you're like, ugh, the second that hits, you are immediately going to cycle back into bad behaviors. So if I know that my last week was not so good, I make an executive decision to just skip this week on the scale, and instead of fixating on whatever that number is that's probably not going to be good, I'm going to cycle back and look at what decisions I've made towards my health for the last week and see how I can improve them or at least tweak them for the following week. Only weigh yourself if you know that you made good decisions this whole week long. Because ultimately, even if you're on a plateau, those good decisions are eventually going to add up. The scale is just a measurement. There's 1,000 other ways that you can measure your progress. You guys have probably heard of Nonscale Victories, those NSVs. Think about, okay, maybe, I needed to shy away from the scale for a while because my behavior was getting a little rough with it, but I'm noticing that my clothes are a little bit looser than they used to be. I'm not huffing and puffing up the stairs to work as much as I used to. All of those are things that you can celebrate as victories along the way of getting healthy. It's not just the number on the scale. And I promise you guys are not alone if you really struggle with fixating on that number. It is something that I actively struggle with, which is why I wanted to bring it to y'all's attention in case you're doing the same thing. So if your relationship with the scale is toxic, maybe throw it in a closet for a little bit until you feel that you are back on track with those healthy decisions and can handle whatever the number is on there. The second thing that is keeping you fat is your absolute garbage relationship with sleep. As a whole, we tend to have pretty bad relationships with sleep hygiene. Sleep hygiene is basically all of the behaviors that you put in place to help you go to sleep. Overall, you want to make sure that you are not looking at a bunch of things that emit blue light before bed. And I know we all love that dopamine scroll on TikTok and Instagram, but realistically, that is going to keep you up longer because your brain got used to those quick dopamine hits and it wants some more.
I have to have it! No!
So it's feeling supercharged and doesn't want to chill out. I know for a lot of us, we definitely deal with sleep apnea or insomnia in my case, and it is really exasperating. I can tell you firsthand, any night that I have had absolute garbage sleep, when I wake up the next day, I am almost always struggling to regulate my emotions. I am super impulsive, and I tend to struggle with not just automatically inhaling the food instead of taking a second to think about if I even want or need it. If you do struggle with sleep consistently, I would highly recommend looking more into good sleep hygiene habits, but the general rule of thumb is if you absolutely have to look at something on the screen before bed, either lower your brightness so it's not as blinding, because all of that light, that is what tells your brain we don't need melatonin right now. It's time to be awake. In the same way, when you get up in the morning, turn on those house lights. It'll help wake you up. But for sleeping, make sure that you are not on the screens super late at night. If you absolutely have to be, I would say avoid the whole doom scrolling thing and switch for something that doesn't have that immediate of a dopamine hit. Maybe watch a video. If you can drag yourself away from a screen, try reading a book, just not one that's too exciting or you might still be up at 5 a.m. I may or may not have a bit of a problem with that. Add some earplugs if you need them, add a face mask or maybe some blackout curtains. Make sure that you are not eating and drinking so late in the evening that you are going to be up peeing all night long. Sometimes it might actually take doing a sleep study with your doctor to figure out something that works a little bit better. It also really helps to keep a routine sleep schedule, even if you're on your days off. Like obviously, yes, maybe sleep in like an extra hour, but if you're going to sleep in routinely like 4 hours more on your day off, there's a pretty good chance that you're messing up your regular sleep-wake cycle. I know for me personally, my diet is about 1,000,000 times worse on the days where I have not slept than the days where I'm rested. The third thing that is keeping you fat is that you hate dieting.
Wait, what?
If you are thinking of whatever your food choices are as a diet, that's mistake number one. If you are trying to lose weight, there's about 1,000,000 ways you can do it. Yes, there are absolutely all sorts of fad and crash diets that might get the weight off really fast. The big problem with that is the second you stop or you just get fed up with the diet because it is so restrictive, you either quit it entirely, go back to old habits and gain the weight back. I'm going to pick on keto for a second just because it was really popular the last few years. Let's say you did keto for like 6 months, you dropped a ton of weight and you're like, yeah, I feel fine. I am getting off of this. The first thing you're going to do in most cases is go back to whatever your old diet was. And either you're going to have to get on keto a whole bunch more times in the upcoming years to re-lose that weight, which, take it from someone who knows, re-losing the same weight again is far less exciting than doing it one time and never having to do it again. It's not very fun. But you're basically going to be on that cycle of, okay, yeah, I can get the weight off, but I'm going to have to do it over and over and over again. And eventually you might get so fed up with it that you stop trying entirely. What I recommend doing instead, try to take it slow and steady. Realistically, you should not be losing more than 1 to 2% of your body weight a week. Your body needs the time to adjust to the new normal, but you also personally need the time to adjust to new ways of eating. If you think about it in terms of whatever new thing I'm doing, this has to be something that I would still want to do 20 years from now. If it's not, in my opinion, it's not really worth wasting your time on, because then you're just going to go through the whole cycle of gaining and losing again. Instead, focus on making small diet changes. For example, when I first started trying to get healthier in 2020, I took a second to look at my intake of condiments because your girl was absolutely in love with ketchup. I literally have a shirt somewhere that says I put ketchup on my ketchup. I'll put a picture if I can find it. But I was obsessed. So what I started with was, one, maybe having more fries than ketchup when I was having fries.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
So once that ketchup bottle finally ran out, which admittedly did not take long because I was loving it, I made sure that the next type of ketchup I ordered was one that was made in a healthier way that didn't have a ton of preservatives and had less calories than the original bottle. I also switched from having 2% milk to having Fairlife, which is a type of milk that, at least in the US, where it has a little bit more protein than like the average Joe milk. It's a very small change, but I didn't give up milk. I didn't give up ketchup. I did drastically cut my amount down, so it was just, a little bit of ketchup if I had some fries, and I tried to maybe do oven-baked fries instead of like oil-fried fries. And with my milks, I think I mentioned in some earlier videos, I was obsessed. I still love milk. It is my favorite beverage, but you know how they always say don't drink your calories? That is a thing. To me personally, living the rest of my life without milk sounds like hell on earth. So what I do is, instead of having 3 of the Fuzzy's taco cups a day that are like the size of my face, I started having a smaller cup or a half of cup of that Fairlife milk. It still satisfies the craving, but it's considerably less calories. Whatever you guys put in place for your health, if you take a second to just look at each thing you're doing bit by bit instead of all at once where it gets way too exhausting, you're a lot more likely to stick with it in the long run. I know that in today's society, we are very much programmed to want those like instantaneous results and just have that instant satisfaction. And I get it. There are diets out there that will work for that. But if you don't think of it as a diet and instead just focus on lifestyle changes, you're going to hate the process a whole lot less. You might even come to actually like and have a good relationship with food. And even though it will likely take you longer to lose the weight, if you only have to do it once, 2 years of weight loss, a year of weight loss, that sounds a whole lot less bad than 10 years of awesome weight loss and gaining it all back, and awesome weight loss and gaining it all back. Think about what your goals are in the long run. The fourth reason that you are staying fat, that has nothing to do with your calories, is just that you aren't paying as close of attention as you think you are. What that means is if you're tracking your calories, you're forgetting about a couple of those midnight snacks, or just in general, the snacks will get you. Snacks are sneaky like that. They love to add on the calories, and it's really easy for us to write it off and be like, oh, I just had a little snack here. It's okay. I'm not going to track it. And if you're not tracking your calories, you might just think of it as, it's just a little something. All those little somethings add up. Hi. All the little somethings add up. You absolutely do not have to track every single calorie that you put in your mouth. For some of us, it tends to really trigger some of the ED behaviors, so you've got to be careful about what works for you. Sorry, Beta wanted some attention. So if you're snacking regularly, start paying attention to that and be like, hey, why am I snacking?
Am I just eating because I'm bored?
Am I emotionally eating? Because that is something that you might want to address in therapy. Or did I maybe just not have a filling enough dinner and might need to adjust a little bit of what I've been eating? For me personally, I am very prone to having middle of the night snacks. Not even because I'm bored, but for some reason, everything seems to taste so much more delicious after 10 p.m. So sometimes I have to tell myself, okay, I've already had dinner. I actually am full and I'm just craving this because it sounds good. If I want this tomorrow when I'm actually hungry, I'll find a way to work it into my calories. But right now, I don't need this. So I guess to quote Mad Eye Moody, constant vigilance, it helps. You're very demanding. She likes face rubs. The fifth thing that might quite possibly be keeping you fat is that you are scared and self-sabotaging. This is something that I have struggled with and still do struggle with on occasion. It can be really scary when you feel like you've made good decisions and you're finally starting to see results. And then you go to weigh yourself and you're like, wow, I'm the lowest I've been in a while. It is really easy to get stuck inside your own head. Sorry, I have cat hair on my nose. Oh God, you are shedding everywhere. Ooh, I'm gonna need a lint roller after this. It's really easy to get stuck inside your own head and think, I gained the weight back when I got to this point before. Or what if I never get to the weight I want and this is just my body's like way of faking out? I swear for the longest time, every time I lost weight, I would almost immediately gain it back. So the second I lost more weight, so much cat hair.
Ew.
Sorry. So the second that I lost any more weight where it seemed like it was slightly making more progress, I would immediately panic and be like, no, it's just not going to happen. I would write it off before I even actually finished making the progress. And I basically would be sabotaging myself. I would be like, oh, okay, I'm doing my meal prep. I'm making good decisions. But am I ever really going to lose the weight? It feels like no, because I've been struggling with this so long. I might as well have whatever the junky item is. All or none thinking. Not healthy. What I want to encourage you guys to do is kind of the same thing that I do. And this actually cycles back to that first tip where you have a very unhealthy codependent relationship with the scale. If you are finally starting to see results, but you are starting to kind of get a bad case of nerves and you're like, oh my gosh, what if I screw it up? I want you guys to take that scale and just put it away. Because even if you did have a healthy relationship with it before, it sounds like you're starting to get into the realm of self-sabotage again and doubting yourself. And instead of focusing on that scale, I want you to just focus on making the good behaviors, but also to take a second and just think about, okay, anytime something comes up that could be a temptation, is this something I want, or am I sabotaging myself because I'm scared I'm never going to hit my goals? Because I promise we can all hit our goals. It just takes a lot of education and a lot of hard work and a lot of good sleep. If there's anything you guys are wondering about how to do or what not to do regarding your weight loss journey or mental health or really just making healthy decisions in general, please comment below and let me know. Ouch, ma'am, you have claws. Trying to do an outro here. Now I'm furry and stabbed. It's lovely. So, as I was saying, if any of that is something that you feel comfortable sharing, please do so in the comments. I would love to find, of course, additional things to talk about. And since you guys are my audience, I want to know what's important to you so that I can help you as much as I can, because you guys are always helping me and being so supportive and so encouraging in the comments. And I want to make sure I'm returning the favor. So like, comment, subscribe, and have a fantastic weekend. And I will see you lovely, lovely humans next time. Bye bye.